And Senator Tester mentioned, I hear a lot of people, very conservative, saying, how are we letting Russia or China get ahead of us on hypersonic weapons?
Right.
And then they want to cut the funding so we can never get ahead of them. Senator Baldwin.
So later today, we are poised to pass the Respect for Marriage Act out of the Senate and take the next step to make marriage equality the law of the land. And right now, millions of loving couples are worried that someday their marriages may be on the SCOTUS chopping block through no fault of their own. I'm glad that our leader talked about this in very personal terms. I want, if any of you saw my floor speech 2 weeks ago, I talked about my dear friends Margaret and Denise and their daughter Maria. And I talked about what their lives were like prior to marriage equality being the law of the land. They were worried about the idea that one of them could be injured or become ill, and the other would not have access to their partner in the hospital because they would have been considered legal strangers prior to marriage equality. They struggled with health insurance because they could not cover one another through their employer-offered insurance because, again, they had no legal relationship that was recognized. And when Maria was adopted, they were so overjoyed, but only one parent was viewed legally as the parent before marriage equality. These are the concerns and anxieties and fears that the Respect for Marriage Act responds to, because we know after the Supreme Court threw out nearly 50 years of precedent in the Dobbs decision that there were other cases that were decided on similar legal and constitutional grounds as was Roe versus Wade. And that is why the Senate has stepped up and focused in on passing the Respect for Marriage Act. We have the opportunity to ease these anxieties and fears and give millions of same-sex and interracial couples the confidence and certainty that they need, that their marriages are and will in the future continue to be valid. And with the backing of the American people, we're going to provide that certainty and guarantee those rights and freedoms with the Respect for Marriage Act. Now, this afternoon, we will have several votes that we will take up. And we're going to hear from some colleagues who are supporting, I would call, fairly partisan amendments. These amendments would upend the months of good faith negotiations, and they would disrupt our carefully crafted bipartisan compromise and change the mission of our very straightforward bill. Now, I'm not going to get into the particulars and the details of the 3 amendment votes that we have, but what I would say is that our clarifying language in the substitute leaves intact religious liberties afforded under our Constitution and federal law. And we have, you don't have to take my word for it, we have the support of conservative legal scholars and a broad coalition of religious organizations. You know, a lot of people have asked me in recent days what the passage of this historic bill would mean to me as a member of the LGBTQ+ community. What I said to people who asked me a similar question back in 2012 when I was first elected to the United States Senate still rings true today. I didn't run for the Senate to make history. I ran for the Senate to make a difference. And we are not pushing this legislation to make history. We are doing this to make a difference for millions upon millions of Americans. It's a historic day, but it's going to make a difference.